Hello and welcome to another episode of Empty the Playbook. Hope everyone enjoyed the episode last week with our introduction to the NFL. And even if you are a long-term NFL fan, hopefully there was some things for you there to pick out. And even if you potentially want to chuck us some advice for how you got involved, the conversation's ongoing. So please feel free to get involved. But a nice, fun episode for people that maybe aren't sure about how they can get interested in American football. And hopefully that's given them some gateways into getting involved in the sport. But that was last week. We're looking forward now to another fun episode here. But before we get stuck in to the nitty gritty, to the important stuff, well, it's all important. I don't know why I said anything else isn't important. We've got to check in with the boys. Who am I coming to first? Thirst? Who am I coming to first? Shapland. How's your week been, bro?
Oh, so I do get introduced this week at the correct time. It's been all right. It's been all right. I've not been doing much. I've been at home. I started reading a book that was lent to me by Mr. Thorns, Brady versus Manning, The Untold Stories. But yeah, so not much has been on. I've been playing some FIFA career mode. I've got Exeter City in the Champions League, which is always, good progress for the Division 2 side. But yeah, not a lot. How have you been, Dan?
Do you know what, mate? Thank you for asking. I have been good to average in that range, I would say, in the 50 to sort of 75%. Enjoyed kind of the end of my Easter holidays before I go back to work. But nothing exciting's really been happening. I've just been watching too much kind of draft hype, playing Madden. I have forgotten how good 2K is. I haven't played 2K in a very long time. And I say very long time, probably like a month and a bit. But because I've been playing franchise mode on Madden, like I just keep winning the Super Bowl and then changing team again. So I had one with the Panthers, one with the Dolphins, one with the Giants, one for Thornsy. I did the Raiders as well. The man loves the Browns, so there's no point in being the Browns. Like, literally loves the Browns, so it's not worth it.
They win it on auto sim most years anyway.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. They're always there. I don't know why, but he loves them. Well, I do know why. They have a very talented roster. But yeah, got back involved in 2K. And I know after we check in with each other, we normally go on to the news of the NFL, but news of the NBA, A-Rod potentially buying the Minnesota Timberwolves, or my Minnesota Timberwolves. Let's go. Well, hopefully. And then hopefully we won't be rubbish all the time. But yeah, so I'm currently in the middle of a career mode in 2K with the Timberwolves. And I'll be honest, it's going just as good as the real life Timberwolves are going. But, and I mean, it can only go up from here because we're the worst team in the NBA. But there you go. So in answer to your question, Shaps, I don't have an answer. But anyway, you've already spoken about the other man in the squad. Thornsy, how you doing, mate? You okay?
I'm good, thank you. It's been a very uneventful week this week. I have a probationary review coming up, which is like a sort of mid-year analysis of how I've been doing for my course. So I've just been preparing for that. And other than that, I've started to try and get into the women's NBA a little bit more because I think it's like the only sports league that really plays over the summer, and I think it does look pretty cool. And they brought out the new jerseys. Huh?
You could follow adult, senior ball, Brit ball.
Yeah, but that doesn't count.
You could go down. You could go down and watch. You could go down and watch. I don't know who plays in Kent because the Exiles are London, aren't they? But you could go down and watch a Kent team. You know, take your picnic chair.
I'll be in Norwich all summer anyway, so I could watch the Devils play. But I think I'll stick with the women's NBA for now. It's all the same. But yeah, no, they brought the jerseys out this week and they look really cool. And it's the draft on Thursday. So I'm trying to get into it, get my knowledge up, and yeah. So that's been my week pretty much.
I respect that. To be fair, Thorn. Oh my goodness, why can't I speak? To be fair, Thorns. Get my THs and my Fs the wrong way around. There we go. No, it's quite interesting. Talking about the WNBA as well. I appreciate someone that gets involved in as many sports as possible, and I think that's true of all three of us, really. I've been trying to get into the women's Six Nations, but Wales aren't as good as the men currently, which, in regards to results, it's not going particularly well. I don't know if we've scored a point across 2 games yet. So not to, slate them or anything. It's, tough competition at international level, whatever sport you're doing. But yeah, it's hard when, much like the basketball, when your team's not doing particularly well, it is hard to stick with, but we persevere. But good. Right. Nice to check in with you boys. But I've had enough about your life stories. So let's talk some NFL. And as we do at the start of every episode, it is time for the news. I don't know what that was. We need a jingle at some point for the news section. I'll get round to it at some point. But anyway, let's get stuck in to the news and get our teeth into some of these key points. So, one of the kind of main things I think that has come out of the past week is the talk of Mac Jones potentially going to the 49ers at 3, and Kyle Shanahan potentially seeing him as kind of like a Tom Brady II almost. So that's a really, really interesting story because, there was talk a month ago, 2 months ago of Mac Jones maybe not going in the first round. And now there's talk of him going 3rd overall. So it's interesting. We'll talk a bit more once I get through the rest of the news. One for Shaps. The Cleveland Browns are in talks to potentially sign Jadeveon Clowney, which will be a nice addition to the already formidable D-line. I mean, I say that, you got Myles Garrett. But, I think my boy Larry's left, hasn't he? Ogunjobi.
He's at the Bengals.
Oh, classic. Division rival, nothing like it. God, never thought there'd be a scenario where Juju turned out to be the good guy, but there you go. Cool. So yeah, that'll be interesting if that happens. I think I'd love to be. I think I could play D end on the other side from Myles Garrett, to be fair. But yeah, nice. Sticking in the division with the team you just mentioned. End of an era for Gio Bernard for the Bengals. He's been released. Which I know the guys at PFF are a little bit sad about because they're based in that neck of the woods. And that's probably the only reason I know, to be honest, because I don't know if this counts as major news. It might have been a bit of a slow news week, I'll be honest. And the kind of last thing that I wanted to talk about that got announced today was DeAndre Hopkins' move to the Cardinals, received the award of Best Sports Transaction of the Year. Can't remember who with, I'll be honest. I didn't pay that much attention to it. But just thought it was funny in a year that the Bucs signed Tom Brady and won his 7th Super Bowl. So, yeah, right.
I assume the awards not for the Houston side of the trade.
No, I think it might be for the Cardinals. Chaps, good point. But yeah, right, gentlemen, takes on the news.
Can I start?
Of course you can. Very polite.
Yeah. Right, I'll go first. I hate the news this week, if I'm being completely honest. We'll start out from the top. Mac Jones how the hell is Mac Jones being talked about as a top 3 pick? Yes, in the last mock draft, I drafted him for the Patriots, but that was purely a scheme fit. And if the 49ers were down where the Patriots are, then yes, I'd say draft him. He's not a first round pick. He's a second or third round pick that's getting overhyped. He is overhyped. There's no two ways about it. He's not that good. Second of all, Jadeveon Clowney, I'm not sure if you guys remember, but he was my player to be wary of in the bit where we talked about players. I like Jadeveon Clowney, and you could argue, he hasn't had the production, but he'll be playing opposite Myles Garrett. Well, he's going to play opposite. He's played opposite JJ Watt, and you can't, like, even if you try and use the excuse, JJ Watt wasn't always healthy. Yes, he got named Pro Bowls when JJ Watt was healthy, but there still wasn't that much production. Like, I think there's better defensive ends you can get for the cheaper end of the price scale. And yeah, I didn't really hate the thing about the trade getting the thing. It was just those 2 points. So I hate 2/3 of the news this week. And Giovanni Bernard, I'm indifferent about. So I hate half the news this week.
Sorry, I'm still reeling from Jadeveon Clowney was in that bit where we talked about players. Like, oh, for goodness.
I didn't even comment that I'd said that. I knew you were going to get it.
That makes it funnier. Oh, I love it. He's in that bit where we talked about players. It's like saying,
if you remember, I spoke about him in that bit about players.
It's like saying, I want to talk about the New England Patriots this week, because I don't know if you remember a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about teams. It's the same thing. Yeah, no, I don't know how I feel about Mac Jones. There's also kind of rumors that the Mac Jones talk is to kind of make people either give up draft capital to get the 49ers pick, or whether there's kind of like being in the subconscious of the Jets at 2 and maybe thinking, San Francisco's moved up to get Mac Jones. Are we making the wrong move by potentially taking Zach Wilson? Should we be looking at Mac Jones? So there's loads of rumors of what potentially the game plan is. It also might not even be Mac Jones that they want at 3. There's just, you don't know who said it, do you? You don't know if that's come from directly the mouth of Kyle Shanahan, or whether that's come from, some guy they hired last week that's like younger than us, that's there on work experience, and the press has come in and said, do you mind doing an interview? And he's like, we're going to take Mac Jones at 3. I don't know why like a guy's younger than us, that's what they sound like. But yeah. And I do remember Jadeveon Clowney from when we were talking about players.
I meant when we were talking about players that were free agents that you should be wary of, actually. But yeah, when we were
now you clarify.
Players.
I know exactly what you mean. Sorry, it shouldn't be as funny as it is, but it was quite funny. Yeah, no, I don't know. I quite like it. He's been solid for a couple of years. You don't know what Jadeveon Clowney you're going to get, I suppose. But I'm really thrilled that you did enjoy the news this week. Thornsy, what did you think of the news?
It's interesting talking about Mac Jones, because that leads on to something I thought was quite funny this week. In a completely monotonous voice. This was really funny. Justin Fields and him rescheduling his pro day again so that Shanahan and the 49ers, whoever's, can be there to watch it. I thought it was hysterical, because you have arguably the 2 biggest college football programs right now, Ohio State and Alabama, both schedule their pro day to be on the exact same day. Who thought that would be a good idea? In what way would that be a good idea? So Fields now has to go out and do all these throws again, which is annoying. 1, because he may have a bad day and then it will reflect badly. But 2, it's an advantage, because apparently he's gone back and looked at all of Shanahan's concepts that he uses, and he's going to throw them in his pro day to show how well he'll fit in Shanahan's scheme. So it's an interesting little tidbit, and it's just, I think, hysterical.
You're telling me that you think Justin Fields would rather play for the 49ers and the Jets?
Would you not?
Nah, I like a challenge.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, surely.
You do look good in green, to be fair.
You
Go.
What a nice way of turning it round, Thorns. That was lovely. To be fair, arguably in history, are you going to be looked at as the better quarterback if you have the ideal situation in San Francisco and win a couple of Super Bowls potentially? That might be a claim. Or are you going to be the better quarterback by going into an awful situation and sneaking them into the playoffs every year and competing? You know,
that's what Baker did. He asked the Browns to draft him and said, I'm the only man here who will ever turn your franchise around. Which, was a bit, I remember listening to his press conference and being like, you bitch, we don't need you. But yeah, thank you, Baker.
Yeah, he's not turned out too bad, has he? And I mean, he's got all those
well, by the sounds of
adverts from it.
It was either going to be Baker. It was either going to be Baker, Rosen, or Darnold with that number one. I know Josh Allen was rumored every now and then, but I don't think he was ever going to go. So, but I'm glad we chose Baker out of the three of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well,
also, can I add a news item this week? I'm not sure if it was more this week or last week. What do you guys make of all this talk about Fields not caring about football that much and that potentially harming his draft stock? I personally think it's a load of,
Such a load of tosh.
An old tosh.
Yeah,
That's
considering
exactly
he played with
It's the same.
He played with crushed ribs, but I just wanted to know your guys' opinions on it.
I think, personally, I think it's a load of rubbish because he's like one of the toughest guys. He's been playing football his whole life. He's like, I mean, he just does care. Like, I think it's such a stupid thing to say. Like, someone gets this far through the process, and it's like, oh yeah, he doesn't care. Like it. Yeah, I don't think it should be paid any attention to be honest.
That's the thing, isn't it? He's kind of getting towards the draft, and I mean, at the minute, that's all we can. One of the main things that we can talk about, and it's kind of filtering through what's truth and what is a load of old tosh, as you coined it, Thorns. But yeah, it'll be interesting to kind of see going forward and whether something mad happens on draft night, like the thing with like Laramie Tunsil and the fact that he was like locked in to be like one of the top 3 picks or something like that, and go on.
I was literally just thinking about that because he, for a segment we will get to later, I'm actually going to talk about Tunsil, and I was thinking because he was projected to go to the Chargers 5th. Is that the spot you drafted Bosa in?
No, 3rd.
Just out of curiosity, I'm trying to get I'm not sure Bosa. Was it? Did you what? Yeah, but what? Who did you draft? Was it Bosa?
Bosa, yeah.
Might have been a year.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know if
so I couldn't remember you being high again.
What year was it? 2017?
It was 2016, I think. 2016, yeah.
Yeah, it would have been Bosa, I think. And Elliott went 4 because I remember Jerry Jones was not very happy with us because we took Joey Bosa at 3 and he really wanted Joey Bosa. You know what Jerry Jones is like? He's got his eyes on someone. Yeah. CeeDee Lamb last year.
Yeah, always Bosa.
Such a wanker.
Oh yeah, he wants Kyle Pitts this year. That's another bit of news. Is that the Cowboys Jerry Jones has said he wants Kyle Pitts despite having the number 10 overall pick, and to trade up in the draft at the moment, you're having to give pretty much half your franchise for. So it'll be interesting to see if he does want to make a move to try and get Pitts, because there's no way in. I mean, this could be, if he pulls off getting Pitts at 10, he's got the steal of the draft. But I can't think that people are talking about Pitts going 5, the first non-QB off the board being Pitts. Like that's how good a prospect. I've spoken about him enough. Yeah, but anyway, so what do you got? Do you guys think they could move up for him, or do you guys not think they've got the facilities for that big man?
I don't know. I mean, they could, maybe. I don't know. I think that Pitts would just give that offense like something else. They'd be really unstoppable. But I don't know. I don't really know that much when it comes to like draft strategy and like obviously I'm not a GM and blah blah blah. But like from a fan perspective, I don't know much about draft strategy and who's going where to get who and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, if they go up and they get Kyle Pitts, they're essentially saying like, because that defense is just like shocking,
awful.
They're essentially saying like, like come here and score more points than us. They're essentially like, if we score 50, you're gonna have to score more, sort of thing. That is how
Tell you what though,
win games.
watching if they did get picked, watching a Dallas offense with picked versus that Washington defense. Now that would be a very nice game to watch in the NFC East, for a change.
Yeah, well, I mean, just that side of the ball, not so much the other half. Well, actually, to be fair, the football team aren't too bad. Terry McLaurin, I don't know if you've heard of him, chaps, and Scary Terry. But yeah, okay, right. We kind of moved away from what the actual news was, and added in our own, which I have absolutely no problem with. And Rob Van Dam, aka Thornsy, has got something to say.
Who's that?
Rob Van Dam from WWE used to be like Rob Van Dam. No?
Well, I don't know who Rob Van Dam is, but I think it's a compliment, so I'll take it.
It is.
Yeah, talking about the Cowboys offense, Dak Prescott coming back as well. He's been throwing the ball this week, looking healthy, so that could make them even better. Talking about surprises in the draft, did you guys see Peter Schrager's mock draft this week? Not. You have not. Well, it was sort of made big news for like the Patriots trading up to 4 and the Cardinals trading up to 7, I think, to get Kyle Pitts. But also, he kind of snuck it in right at the end. He put Davis Mills out of Stanford, the quarterback, going at 32 to the Bucks. So I thought that was newsworthy because personally, I'd never thought of Davis Mills being in the top 2, even 3 rounds, let alone going 32. So before I bring that up, if anyone's interested in researching him, he has quite an interesting career history. And finally, I just saw this like literally 2 minutes ago, but do you guys know Kevin James, Paul Blart, Mall Cop, Grown Ups?
Yeah, the fat one with a mustache.
Yeah,
well, he doesn't have a mustache, and so carry on.
Grown Ups on the
Segway thing.
Segway, yeah, on the Segway. He's doing a film about Sean Payton when he coached his son's football team when he was suspended for Bounty Gate, which is meant, I don't know when it's coming out or anything like that, but I think that could be, it sounds funny, and it's football related, and this is a football podcast, so it's like 3 birds and 1 stone.
Nice. What a lovely way to end it. I did actually see that earlier in the day, but didn't realize it was about kind of like when Sean Payton had was it a full year? I can't remember if it was a full year off or whether it was just a couple of games, but I think it was a full year off. But cool. Right. Thank you, gentlemen. That was the news. Let's move on. Okay. Actually, but before we move on, just seen that Gio Bernard, who we obviously talked about in the news, is signing with the Bucks to add another offensive weapon. Probably have a career resurgence in Tampa Bay and probably have like 70 receptions or something this season and be like a David Johnson type back in the heyday, back in like 2016 or 17, whenever he had that ridiculous season. Exactly, Thorns. Right. Okay, I guess we better move on properly now. Unless there's any more. I'm looking at my phone just in case, like we said before the show, maybe Deshaun Watson gets traded. No, it's not happening. Okay. We'll move on. Right. So with all this kind of draft conversation and the mock drafts that we've been doing recently, I want to kind of go back to the early days of the show where we began kind of talking about free agency. One of the kind of big things that teams need to consider when they get to free agency and the draft as well, to be fair, is what's called the cap. If you're a long-term NFL fan, you may know a lot about the cap. You may also been an NFL fan for years and still not really understand the cap because it's a weird concept, especially if you're British, because it's not something that we really kind of see over here. We kind of see like financial fair play in football and rugby as well. Obviously, Saracens had an issue this past season, but
he has the cap.
Sorry?
Rugby has the salary cap.
That's what I just said.
Yeah, sorry, I thought you were saying that. Sorry.
I
Can you
just-
restart?
No, we can't. We're in it now. And rugby kind of has financial fair play rules as well. Obviously, we've seen the impact that's had on Saracens over the past year, but the salary cap is obviously such a big deal over in America with their sports. So, and I think this will be kind of a lesson for me and Thornsy as well. But we kind of handed the reins this week to our resident maths expert. Oh, that's probably the nicest thing I've ever said about you, Shaps. Although I'm sure you'll enjoy that title. But yeah, we're handing it over to you this week because class is in session as we all learn a bit about the NFL salary cap. So over to you, Mr. Maths expert, Shap Lund.
Yeah. So first off, I just want to give a shout out to a future potential guest. He might not know it yet, but Lewis Williams, who gave us the idea for this, which is Shap explains the cap. Right. So I'm going to start off. I'm going to go through some of the basics, and then if you guys just sort of fire off any generalized questions you have on the whole, that will be Gucci. Right. So as Dan sort of alluded to, I'll start from like a basic and work my way up. The all American sports pretty much work on the hermetic or closed system, which basically means, and the NFL in particular use the franchise system, which basically maximizes revenue and keeps all clubs wealthy. So whereas obviously like Dan spoke about in football, you see the massive financial discrepancies and you see Man City spending about 200 million every summer without fail, whereas you've got like Brighton putting out a team of plumbers and still staying up in the Premier League. But anyway, not getting too distracted. So I'm gonna go right into it. The cap is the amount of money that you can spend on players. So it's weird. There's a lot of sort of ifs and buts, but I'm going to talk you through it. So the cap last year in 2020 was 198.2 million. This has been announced to have dropped by 15.7, and for the next year is 182,500,000. Yeah. So where do we get the number from? It starts off where the cap is decided. The reason why it fell is because the cap is directly derived from the NFL's revenue. So the NFL, every single part of its profits from like literally from everything, from the network deals, from the ticket sales to the car parks, to the car park receipts, every single part of that revenue and profit is counted. And then that money is then split. So as I'm sure you can guess, the money gets split favorably to the players and not to the owners. No, of course it doesn't. So the owners take 52% of the money, despite not taking any of the risk, and the players get 48%, which has actually was decided in the most recent collective bargaining agreement, and that is now fixed. Those numbers are fixed for the next decade, where the owners will get 52% and the players will get 58%. Okay, so that 58%, is that the cap? Well, no, not technically.
48% or 58%, sorry.
So the owners get 52%, the players get 48%.
Sorry,
that's how the split's seen. No worries. Right, yeah. And that money is not the cap. Not yet. So you take out player benefits. Player benefits usually account for about 18% of this money that the players get. So of the 48%, 18% of that goes to player benefits. Now, player benefits is insurance, pensions, and also stuff like playoff and Super Bowl bonuses. Those come out of this extra pot that isn't related to the salary cap. Not incentives though, just the extra bonuses that everyone on the team gets as general. Right, so that basically means that leaves the other 82% of that 48% is the salary cap. So roughly the salary cap's about 38% of total league revenue, total league profit. And that's obviously split between all the teams. So you might go, oh, that's simple. So it's just one set number. No, but yes, it can be. Yeah, so you've got that one set number, and the teams have a minimum spend. The team have to spend at least 90% of the cap, but it's not 90% in a given year. The way the cap works is it works on cycles. So the cap works on 3 and 4 year cycles, where basically in a 3 or 4 year cycle, they have to spend 90% of the cap in that 4 years. So say I've given an example of quite a basic cap numbers. Say if the cap in year 1 was 100 million, the cap in year 2 was 110 million, and the cap in year 3 was 120 million, right? So the minimum spend across that 3 years would be 293 million minimum. But the clubs, the teams do not have to spend it equally in each year, or the proportion, 90% proportion in each year. They can spend less in the first year and do a cap rollover, as it's called, which, fun fact, wasn't allowed in the league till 2011. And before then, they used to put like BS incentives in that they know wouldn't get hit, but counted as part of the cap. So they'd get the cap refund for next year. So for instance, you'd get a backup quarterback would have an incentive, which would be classed as likely. I'll get to that later, which would be a cap, which would basically be a cap hit of like 20 million. And for that bonus would be if they threw 8 TDs in a game or something like that, something that everyone knew they weren't going to hit. And it was just done just for cap mathematics.
I really feel like I'm going to get a degree after this. Well, I've already got a question. Sorry. So, for example, say like, the Cowboys have got, say, like a 100,000 seater stadium that, is pretty much always sold out. And let's say a team, for example, on the other end of the scale, like the LA Chargers that have no fans. So does that all go into one big pot that counts as the league revenue? Or does it this might be a question that you kind of answer later on, but no. Okay, right. So sorry, go on.
Yeah, funny you say that, because I'm not actually 100% sure on that. But the way it's worked out is it says NFL revenue and stadium sales are included in that. So I assume it does all go into the same pot.
Okay. Right.
But this is the thing. NFL ownership is just money, which why you never see anyone want to go out of NFL ownership, except the Washington owners, but that was for obvious other reasons.
Yeah, nice one. Cheers, thanks.
Yeah, so that is essentially where the big number of the cap comes from, and that's obviously why you see something like, for instance, the cap hit for the Eagles for Wentz is 34 million next year, which is the 4th highest cap hit out of any player in the NFL, and he doesn't even play for him, because obviously with 182 million, 0.5, you're losing 34 of that for someone who's not on your roster. But it's also why you see trades of stuff like Osweiler went to the Browns, and the Browns actually gained a pick and Osweiler because the Browns needed to up their cap and the Texans needed to distribute cap. And I've got a question for Mr. Thorns.
You may have answered this, or you are probably going to answer it later, but what is this dead cap? What's the word? Dead cap
thing.
Oh my God. You know when something is like a
on the tip of your
what does dead cap mean?
Right, yeah. So dead cap, I should explain. Dead cap's money that the NFL team is paying out that's not for a player that that's actively playing for them, but they can't avoid it. So for instance, I'll get into how some examples of dead cap, but say, I'll go into that now. So the way where the cap gets complicated is because of stuff like dead cap and contracts, because NFL contracts, I once saw it described as if you're playing like a video game, NBA contracts are the medium mode, MLB contracts are the easy mode, and NFL contracts are the hard mode, because NFL contracts have so many ifs, buts, and maybes, but no absolutes. So I'm going to give you some. So right, there's multiple parts of a contract. You've got the signing bonus. This is evenly split over the contract date. So for instance, when you see like, I think Pat Mahomes only got like a 10 mil signing bonus, but the cap hit for that 10 mil signing bonus for his contract is 2 million a year over the length of his, is an even split of his cap hit over the length of his contract, but it maximizes at 5 years. So Pat Mahomes is 2 mil every year for 5 years. And so for instance, say if I signed for the Cleveland Browns tomorrow on a fully guaranteed 1 million salary and a signing bonus of 10 million over 3 years, but only my first year is guaranteed. So that 10 million, we'll say over 4 to make the number simpler. So would split to 2.5 mil every year is my cap hit for the thing. And then my salary obviously comes in. And if I'm still on the roster, if I get cut and my salary is not guaranteed, they don't have to pay my salary. But this is where you see June 1st. You hear a lot about June 1st in football. June 1st is what it is because of how it works for cutting players. So if you cut a player on June 1st, say if I was getting cut after my first year because I was shocking, if they straight cut me after my first year and I still had 7.5 mil of my signing bonus, even though I got paid it straight away, there's still 7.5 mil that's supposed to be dotted out across my contract. That all capitulates to 1 point. So my dead money for the next year, so the money that teams paying me that counts against their cap, despite me not playing for them, would be 7.5 mil. However, if they cut me on June 1st or after June 1st, my cap hit for the next year is 2.5 mil. And then the year after is 5 mil. So it splits it in 2 sections. So that's why that date is so important in the off-season calendar, because you can split your dead money, basically. That's what June 1st is. It's the day to split your dead money. But yeah, I'll get back to that. So you've got signing bonuses, which is split across the length of your contract evenly, cap at 5 years. And if you get cut, obviously, like I said, it all comes down, or you can spread it. Roster bonuses, fairly simple. It's something that's put in your contract. If you're on the roster at that date, they give you the money. Fairly straightforward, and it only counts against your cap the year you get the money. Right, and then workout bonuses, same as roster bonuses, something you get for achieving, like doing workouts with the team, and that it counts against the cap the year you play for the team. Thornsy.
Again, you might cover this, but when it comes to trades, like we see with Carson Wentz getting like 34 mil, can the Eagles say like, we'll give you Wentz if you take this cap hit, or do they automatically have to take the hit?
The Eagles, as each franchise, must spend 90% of their cap, and the cap always goes to the dead team, goes to the team they live. Being traded is the exact, as far as the cap's concerned, being traded and being cut are the exact same thing. The only thing that changes is the salary gets transferred. That's the only difference. So then obviously you've got base salary, like I said. So much you can have base salary, it can be guaranteed for so many years. And it's the same as if you cut someone with guaranteed salary, then if say Kirk Cousins, they tried to cut him after his first year, then they still got like 60 million left of his salary. They could either take that 60 million hit in 1 year or split it by cutting him on June 1st and take 30 mil each year. But that's how guaranteed salary obviously works the same as if he had 0 guaranteed after the first year. So this is when you hear me talk on previous podcasts about no money's guaranteed. It basically means that you can cut them after year 1 or year 2 in most cases. And then after year 1 and year 2, they earn kaput. They get kaput from the team. They have no dead cap. Except for their signing bonus and any other bonuses, which you also got option bonus, which is another kind of signing bonus, but they can backload it. So option bonuses aren't set at a specific number each year, but it can be, we'll pay you like 5 mil next year. It's like a signing bonus in sort of respects. It's just another way of working around the cap. And then you've got the way that is the best way to work around the cap, in my opinion, or one of the best ways. You've got incentives / escalators. Now these work in 2 categories. You've got likely and unlikely. So a player is classed as likely. These incentives are statistical incentives. So a player is classed as likely if they achieved that the year before. That's it. And then unlikely if they didn't. So say I'm Jadeveon Clowney right now signing with the Browns. They could give me an incentive saying, get 5 sacks, get 5 sacks and you hit this incentive for 5 million, that's classed as an unlikely incentive because he didn't do it last year. And the big difference is a likely incentive counts against the cap the year they sign it. And then if they don't hit it, it rolls over to next year. But an unlikely incentive does not count against the cap. But if they meet it, it gets taken off next year's cap.
Do you know who determines?
Yeah.
Likely or
And then,
unlikely? Sorry, do you know who determines that? Whether it's unlikely or likely?
yeah, no, it's if they met. It's if they met the statistical, because they're only statistics, these things, and it's if they met that statistic the previous year. So an example is Richard Sherman joined the 49ers after an injury-riddled and not doing that much for the Seahawks because he was obviously injured. His cap hit was nothing, which was why it was such a good deal for the 49ers, because if he got injured, he had no cap hit on that year, but he balled out. And yes, he had a big cap hit the next year, but he balled out. Like it was a sort of like they didn't have to take the hit in that year that was a Super Bowl year for them because they had an expensive roster. They didn't have to take that hit. They could save that hit for next year. And then this is where, yeah. So any more questions about that sort of stuff? Oh, I will. I'll get on to rookies contracts in a bit. But hey, have you got any questions about how that sort of stuff works?
No, it just Thornsy probably has because you're the most curious person I've ever met, and I love it. But it just makes me really reconsider when I say I'm absolutely class at franchise mode on Madden because I manage the salary cap like amazingly well. Like how little actually goes into it compared to real life management. That's what I've got to add. That's literally it.
Yeah, I'm the same. I just trade players away. And it's like cap hit 8 mil, oh, you're gone. And then obviously if it's real life, it's like, oh, well, maybe not. But yeah.
And then you forget about the dead money after. You're like, oh, I didn't know he was going to be like, it's like cap hit 8 mil, dead cap 20.
So with all these like bonuses, incentives and whatnot, is that essentially like teams will just keep rolling to next year?
Yeah, well, obviously if they hit the statistical milestone, the charge is next year. But then obviously if they give them the same incentives, they'll be classed as likely incentives. So they'll get a double charge that year because obviously, but it's unlikely you'll get 2 incentive-laden contracts in the same year like that. Incentive-laden contracts are normally first year. So while we're talking about sort of that structure and stuff, so obviously there's been a lot of talk with the Saints and their restructuring. One of the main ways you do that is, for instance, the perfect player that I think will see the Saints. I'm not sure if they've already done it, actually. I haven't checked. But the perfect player for the Saints is Ryan Ramczyk right now, because he is their right tackle, former All-Pro, I'm pretty sure. Right tackle, great player who's on his 5th-year option, which is going to cost the team 13 million. Now, what they can do is they can re-sign him, give him a year 1 base salary of a vet minimum, which is about $1 million, I think, and then give him a fat signing bonus of like say 10 million over 4 years. So then that cap hit for the first year is 3.5 mil rather than 13 mil that they were going to be paying. And then they can get his salary the next year could be 16 mil. But if the first year salary is only 300K. So when you see a lot of this talk with Tom Brady and all the quarterbacks restructuring their contracts, that's what they're doing. They're basically, well, in a lot of cases, that's what they're doing. They're taking a big signing bonus and having it split out and then taking low wages, big signing bonuses. A lot of the reasons why you see it with QBs done is because obviously they're players that you tend to have around the longest and like the furniture. So like someone like Big Ben and Tom Brady have always been like reshuffling their contracts because the franchise knows that Big Ben's going to be there.
So me again. Is it when you talk about like restructuring, is that players like can they do like whatever they want with their contract? So say like Ramczyk, if they come to him and he's on like 4 years, 80 million or something ridiculous, can they go to him and be like, look, you haven't performed, blah blah blah? Can Ramchek and the Saints then be like, okay, I'll completely revamp that to be like a 4-year, $15 million contract, or is that like breaching the rules?
What's to say? Okay, it's to say if they wanted to just complete. So say if they wanted to just completely lower his salary,
Yeah,
just across all the years.
Yeah, so like, sorry, you go.
It is feasible. So I think what you're saying is that if Ramchek, instead of being a 30 mil cap hit, can just say, "Oh, don't pay me that. Pay me like 1 mil a year for the next 4 years." Yeah, that's completely allowed, completely feasible. It's just no player would ever do it. Well, that's what. To be fair, that's literally what Brady does. Brady takes pay cuts every year and just goes, "I'll take less than I'm worth. Take money away from me, give it to other people." That's what he does every year. Well, that's how he built the dynasty in New England, and that's how Tampa have so many weapons.
I hate him.
He loves you.
I'm sure he does. So obviously we kind of said that there's, well, the salary cap is there for a reason. So what happens if, and you've kind of talked already about the minimum spend that they have to do. What happens if they kind of exceed, like go over the salary cap? Like, is there like, what happens?
Long story short, they can't. Unlike, so you see in the NBA, you see it's sort of like a soft cap is the word that's used for the NBA, because it's sort of flexible. You can, dilly-dally over the line. Oh, you're cheeky, you go and spending more than you've got. No, in the NFL, if you go over the salary cap, you get fined up to 5 mil. They'll cancel contracts of your players. They have the rights to do that. They'll take your draft picks. Basically, no one's ever gone over the salary cap, because if they'll get absolutely ruined if they do. The closest we've come is in 2010. There was the sort of owner holdout. There was the owner holdout from the CBA, collective bargaining agreement, which meant that there was no given salary cap. But the league literally went around and went, guys, there's no salary cap. Let's keep it cool. Let's keep it cool. And several teams front-loaded contracts, knowing that, despite the league's warning. So the Cowboys and Redskins were docked 10 mil of their cap space the next year, and that was split between all the other teams to share. So they basically that was their penalty, except for the Saints and Thornsy's Raiders, who also diddled with the cap too much in that uncapped year. So yeah, basically don't mess with the league when it comes to cap, or they'll make it healthy.
It's nice that they take one thing seriously when it comes to punishments, isn't it? Not like,
Hey, they took substance abuse for so long.
Yeah, to be fair, they took.
If you smoke weed, they took that seriously.
If you smoke weed and you go over the cap, like, I wish you the best of luck. But if you do anything else, miss a game, have a weekend with the boys, and then come back next week, you'll be fine. Sorry, Rog, if you're listening.
Any more questions?
Yeah. Draft's coming up, and we must have spoken in the past. If not on here, then definitely in the old crib. I'll cut that. If not on here, then definitely in the house last year. Drafts, picks, players. I kind of draft picks and players. Like, how does that work? Like, if you're like, because they talk about like rookie scale contracts. I'm sure people have heard of them. Like, how do they work?
Right. So basically, there's obviously there's a rookie. There's the rookie scale, which you literally just said. But basically, there's a reason for it, because in 2009, Matt Stafford was paid 6 years, 72 mil contract. Bradford was given a 6 year, 78 mil contract. And yeah, so basically the contracts were getting ridiculous. And to put that into perspective, the year they brought in the rookie cap was 2011, and Cam Newton then got 22 mil 4 years after after the big money that was being handed out just before. So rookie contracts start off, they're split into 3 categories. You've got first rounders, second rounders, and third plus. So first rounders get 4 years, they all get 4-year contract. They all get their signing bonus guaranteed. First rounders get all 4 years guaranteed. Second rounders get 2 years guaranteed, and third plus rounders, like anything more than third rounder, is 1 year guaranteed. They cannot. This is the big kicker that I think in them. They cannot negotiate with any other team or their own team about extending or increasing their contract until the 3rd year of that contract, which is a joke, because if you have that's basically what happened with Dak Prescott. We had Dak Prescott was a 4th round pick, getting a base salary of $750,000 poor soul. That was his base salary, and he was locked in on that salary for 3 years, waiting for his extension. That's why when his extension time came, he was like, "Pay me the money I've saved you," basically, because they get locked in. Whereas on the flip side, someone like, say, Philip Lindsay, had a really good rookie season. He was able to he could have, and I think did. You can negate, if you're undrafted, you can negotiate a new contract at any point. So if you're going to be a late round pick, it's almost better to be undrafted, basically. Moral of the story. But yeah, so the way money goes to picks is actually quite cool, because you'd think it was position dependent. No, the first overall pick gets paid the most, second overall pick gets paid the second most, and so on. But we spoke about Laremy Tunsil a bit at the start of the show in the news and such. But the reason why it's a thing, because you talk about this scale, the NFL has an allotted amount of money that gets spent on rookies every year, which is how they come up with these numbers. And each team has so much a minimum spend on rookies they're allowed, which even like teams with low draft picks have to spend money on rookies somewhere, because they have a minimum of that as well. But yeah, so you talk about this scale, which has come from this number that they take from, again, the cap, because it all hits the cap. Rookies hit the cap, but obviously their cap hits a lot less. For instance, Baker Mayfield was 4 years, 35 million, which for a QB is chump change. Yeah, so it all hits the cap, and that's where they get the money from. That's where they get the contracts from. So the first round pick this year is going to get less than the first round pick did last year, Joe Burrow. Trevor Lawrence will earn less than Joe Burrow. I know, shocking prediction there. Yeah, and it sort of scales down. The first round has the biggest scale downs. So for instance, I think Lamar Jackson's contract was worth about 12 million, 13 million, when Baker's was worth 35 million. And that's just the top to the bottom of the first round. By the time you hit the third round, you're talking about 3 million. And then round 7, I think the bottom picks gets 2.5 mil as their contract. Basically the higher you are, the bigger the gaps are. And the biggest gap, I believe, is when you fall out the top 5. So it's like 2 mil drop from first to second, 1.5 from second to third, 1 mil to third to fourth, so much from fourth to fifth. But then it's like an extra 7 or 8 mil the drop between fifth and sixth. So Laremy Tunsil going from a top 5, that's why top 5 is so important. Laremy Tunsil going from a top 5 pick to going 13th cost him probably about 10 mil, 6 to 10 mil. Thornsy, I think you had a question.
Yeah, when you get to like the second and the third round, or even beyond that, like how does it like keep going down, or are there picks where you have like the same pay? So like if your pick like 61 and 62, is that still like 61 gets like a tiny little bit more than 62, or does it sort of level?
Every single pick has de-escalating value. So if the earlier if you're drafted 2 positions before, no matter if it's first to third or 165th to 163rd, you will get more money if you're drafted earlier. The other important thing to note is first rounders also have 5th-year options, which are completely up to the club to pick up. And the 5th-year option is just a guaranteed contract. I think something like, I'm not 100% sure, but I think it works out as just over half of the franchise tag for that position or something. Yeah. So yeah, that's roughly sort of how your rookie contracts work, which is weird because I always thought, that QBs got paid more in the first round, and so like if a QB got taken 2nd overall and a D lineman got taken 1st overall, say with the Myles Garrett, Mitch Trubisky, I'd have thought Mitch would have got paid more. But there's like you used to hear about holdouts, so like Jamarcus Russell and people like that holding out for money. That's why you never really get holdouts. The only they literally all the sort of like messing about with the contracts where you see like players waiting to sign their contracts is literally just random. Like there's hardly any incentives in rookie contracts. It's just random like clauses and extra amendments. Like it's just such fine details that make almost no difference on the money. But it used to make big differences. Yeah, Thornsy again.
Just like to give you an example to bolster that point, Roquan Smith a couple of years ago. Woo! Hey, look, I'm a master's student. I know words.
You've learned so much from this. You've started from like a first year at the start of this session, and now you are a master's student in the NFL salary cap.
Next week, I'll be talking all about the salary cap. Sorry, just to add to your point for anyone listening, Roquan Smith a couple of years ago, he held out of his contract because that was when they brought in the targeting rule of the lowering the helmet to initiate contact. So he held out and was like, any fine he receives for doing that, he's not gonna be paid out of his contract or some like weird little thing like that. But
well, yeah, that's exactly it. They're the little clauses and stuff that are actually the stuff that's getting worked out. The salary of the rookie is pretty much predetermined, and they're not very incentive based. It's just stuff like that. That's a perfect example. Yeah, so that's pretty much the cap. So you've got the big number which rolls about between 3 or 4 years that you've got to stay between 90 and 100% of, and then you can mess about with your players' contracts, backload them, forward load them using different measures I said earlier, and then can't go over. Rookies are obviously you have because that's why like teams know predeterminedly how much money they're going to spend on a rookie because it's pretty much predetermined, which is also I'll bring in. I spoke a bit about June 1st, that important date in football. You get two advanced June 1st cuts, which basically means you get 2 players that you can say I'm going to cut them on the 1st of June, and they know, the league knows, because that frees up your calories, that frees up your cap space. Yeah. So I believe Fawn's had another question.
What happens if a player retires?
This is something you've seen with Drew Brees and the Saints, which is why he reorganized his contract. Basically, it's pretty similar to a player getting cut. They take the cap hit. And you can spread it out. You can spread it out in ways, but it's pretty similar to someone getting cut. So yeah, that's why Drew Brees renegotiated his contract to sort of like spread out his contract so that when he retired or got cut, the cap hit wasn't that much, because the original cap hit was supposed to be like 35 mil, and I think they worked it down to like 15 mil or 10 mil because they gave him a signing bonus, which is the main thing, the prorated bonuses, the signing bonus and stuff like that. That's going to hit him regardless if he's retired or if he's still a player. So the guaranteed salary, the only difference is you don't have to pay him guaranteed salary. It'd be really nice if Thornsy said something after I answered this question.
Oh, thank you very much.
Lovely. Great. Thank you, chaps. So this week, Thorns, we're going to play the mystery player game, guess the player. We need like a catchy name for this game at some point to come up with. But I think that's a story for another day, because people aren't here for the name of the game. They're here to play the best game in American football podcasts in the land. Normally we do, well, obviously the last couple of times we've done it with guys that hit free agency this off season, but I believe you're doing it with a bit of a twist this week. So what's the twist?
Yeah, the twist. Well, firstly, I think the fun bit encapsulates this bit of the show perfectly. So I'll roll with that name. The fun bit.
You're saying the cap's
Anyway.
not fun?
Yeah, so this, I think, yeah. No, the cap's interesting, but it's like, if you're sat in a maths lesson and you understand it, it's quite like, you know, it's enjoyable. But if you say maths is fun, you know, does it make you cool?
I was just about to say, maths is
Anyway.
fun, but it might hurt your street cred. I think my street cred has just been hurt by the fact that I said the word street cred as well, to be honest. But
Yeah. I think, you know, anyway. So we've changed it up a bit this week. Coming into the draft, it's like 2, maybe less than that. Depends released. So yeah, we're going to sort of gear it towards that. And rather than educate you about free agents and post-free agents, we're going to teach and educate, as we all want to do, about, sorry, the doorbell just rang, about draft prospects. Who's coming up, you know, who are guys that you think, who do we want to teach you about, you know? Anyway, so we've got an example. You'll never guess who it is. So see, these are some of the quotes. This guy was drafted back in 2014. Or was he drafted? You never know. Anyway, so
Which round? How much do you get paid?
that would be a spoiler. So, instinctive football player who finds the football at a high rate. Highly flexible to dip his shoulder under the hands of blockers on the edge and turn corners. Can convert speed to power and pack a punch to the chest of blockers. Cuts down space to play lead blockers without hesitation. Has elusiveness in small areas to quickly work past blockers. But poor physical traits, doesn't look the part of an NFL player. Lacks optimal height and length for a pass rusher. Has little definition, almost to the point of being chubby. I never knew that was a criticism of an NFL player. Wow. Yeah. Can you guess who it is?
I would almost, right, this is a random guess. Does he play for the Chiefs?
No.
No. Does he play for the Bucks?
Yeah.
Oh, no. I don't know. Dan's going to have to take it, unless it's Shaq Barrett.
Oh, how did yeah, you know, a long-term favourite of the show. Yeah, here you go.
I was going to say my guess was Justin Gilbert.
What's your guess? Oh, it should have been Justin Gilbert.
I think that was the year he was drafted as well.
Look. Yeah, I think it was. Anyway, you know, me and Shaq were in contact constantly, and he said, you know, he'd put me on the show again. I was like, fine, you know, you asked so nicely. Anyway, yeah, Shaq Barrett, outside linebacker, Colorado State, 2014. He was undrafted. Professor Shaps, cap-wise.
Nice flexible contracts on offer there.
There you go. And yeah, so obviously we're not going to do Shaq Barrett this year, nor are we going to do someone that was drafted 7 years ago, because that's kind of not the point. Well, entirely not the point. We're going to look at guys in this year's draft, bring up a few quotes, maybe sort of shed some light on them that we didn't think people would realise, or bring up a talking point that we think's been overlooked. I haven't done that. You two might have. So, but yeah, and just generally sort of, then we can guess and see who it is, and maybe give a bit of a background, a bit of a backstory about why we think they're going to be drafted, where they're going to be drafted, or whatever. You know the drill. Who wants to go first?
You.
Me? Okay. By popular demand. I won't do the position, but you'll probably get it because it's in two of the quotes. So, he has the athleticism and the mindset of an NFL player. He's not going to back down from anybody. Though he doesn't get many interceptions, he gets plenty of pass breakups. I've heard from teams in the top 15 of the draft, he'll be off the board early. An explosive athlete with the tools to evolve into a shutdown corner. Whoops. He isn't a finished product, but his potential makes him an easy pick for teams looking for a premier cover corner. He has the skills to excel straight away as a press man cornerback, and he's a big physical player with plenty of speed and instincts.
I think I know it.
Who you got? Yeah?
I don't know. Well, it's one of two, but I'm going to go with, is it JC Horn?
Dan, who have you got?
I think I'm going to go with what I think. You are? What did you say, chaps?
I was going to say, I think it's him or Surtain, but I'm going to go with JC.
I'm going to go, and I'm trying to get in Thornsy's head, which is a dangerous game to play. I think you might have chosen this person because over the last few weeks, this person's draft stock has fallen. And so these quotes might be kind of like changed now. And so I think you might have gone with Caleb Farley from Virginia Tech.
You are incorrect. It was JC Horn.
See, I went the opposite way. I went
to double bluff.
It's been a hot topic recently.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to double bluff. It was unintentional.
Well, I figured I was stuck between. I thought. You said cover corner as well, which put me off. 'Cause you said good cover corner, and then you said good like sticky man corner, and I was like, well, sticky man's more like sticky man's more Surtain, cover corner's more Farley. So I was like, shoot down the middle and hit JC Horn.
Yeah. I mean, Horn he looks like a great prospect. He's a freak athlete. The quotes speak for themselves. And yeah, I mean, by the sounds of it, he's a guy that's going to be in the top 15, worth talking about. And I think as well, coming into draft season, he was sort of dismissed behind Farley and Satan. So to see him like rising up boards and potentially even be in the top corner.
Interesting to see in 3 years' time, we could be sat. I know it's happened to a couple players, but I can't for the life of me think who. But there's been a couple players who've had injury or surgery concerns that's caused them to drop, and then everyone's gone, "Oh, he was worth a second-round pick, surely." And I think that's going to be Caleb Farley. I think he's going to drop. Unfortunately, like I hate to say it, but I mean he's going to drop out the first round potentially. And I think someone's going to get an absolute steal.
I think
he was before his surgery came out. He was number one corner.
Yeah, I think someone's going to get a steal with him, but I think it's going to be the Jets or the Jaguars in their kind of second pick. They will already have kind of locked in their quarterback and now can take a punt on potentially a long-term option at corner. So I think that'll be kind of where he lands. And someone that I can think of in recent history that had a bit of kind of like an injury history that has gone on to do better than potentially he's known for is Jeffrey Simmons of the Tennessee Titans. In his college career, I think he tore his ACL. And he's just turned out into like a beast and someone that I know me and you, Thornsy, really liked when he came out of college. And that's someone that just sticks in my mind that kind of, it didn't work out for him at the time, but as the Tennessee Titans, who I think picked him at 28, something like that, 28, 29, got an absolute steal. So you raise a good point. Something like that.
Yeah.
End of the first round.
Yeah, later than he should
Anyway.
have been picked. Yeah, I remember us two just fanning over him in the when the Titans beat the Patriots that time. Another guy, Jaden Smith, he fell to the second round to the Cowboys, and now look at him. Who wants to go next? Dan, you're up.
Great. So my player is someone that has declared for the 2021 NFL draft. Sorry, I thought I'd add that in, obviously. Okay, so some of the quotes about this player. He's flexible and loose with silky smooth feet. Oh yeah, I'm not going to give you the position straight away. But yeah, I just thought that was a nice quote to start with. That he was flexible and loose, much like an undisclosed person in this group chat, who I will not say, or this group chat, this recorded. He has an enticing combination of feet, hips, and hand strength. He has the agility to stalk and connect against moving targets. Sometimes he inexplicably lets opponents off the hook early rather than finishing them, but is currently considered a fast rising prospect who can play anywhere across the offensive front. Who do you think it is?
Well, straight away, I'm thinking you've said. I was thinking Slater. Is it? But now with the versatility, you've got me thinking. Is it Vera Tucker? I'm not sure if I'm saying that right.
Yeah, Elijah Vera Tucker out of USC.
Yeah, because he's the sort of I thought he was out of at USC. He's the more versatile lineman that's obviously quite rising on the boards. But I'm not really set with either of them, so I'm going to send it over to Thornsy to have his let him spill his 10 pence worth.
I was going to say Slater as well. Yeah, I can't think of any of the old linemen that have been described as versatile. So I'd have to go with Slater as my pick.
This has worked out really lovely for me.
Slater,
sorry. Go on. You go.
If you're going with Slater, then I guess I'm going to have to take Vera Tucker then.
Then I carry on saying what I was going to say, which was this has worked out lovely for me because you're both wrong. He's currently listed as an offensive tackle, but I feel like potentially will move inside to guard depending on the situation that he ends up in. From Virginia Tech, Christian Darrisaw.
Really?
Yeah. Who is a interesting product, I think. I think he's kind of one of those weird ones. And he might be in the same kind of category as Vera Tucker, where the offensive lineman, there's quite a lot of versatile offensive linemen going into this draft.
Yeah.
Think like Rashawn Slater, you think Vera Tucker, you think now I've brought it up Darrisaw, but he was definitely in the back of your mind somewhere. And there's a lot of those kind of guys that could play tackle or guard that are going to go in the first round. Like, there's no doubt about it. But there's a lot of situations where they could end up playing he's either a tackle or a guard. I think of the Chargers. One of these guys, fingers crossed, will end up at the Chargers. I think of the Cowboys, potentially one of these guys ending up at the Cowboys if their dream move for Kyle Pitts doesn't work out. I think of the Giants, could have someone come in and play guard or someone come in and play tackle and maybe move Matt Pert inside or whatever dream they've got. And so I think it's quite interesting because I think Darrisaw is kind of almost considered that place in the draft where he's after Penei Sewell and Rashawn Slater, who are pretty much potentially locked in to be the first two offensive linemen off the board. So I think Darrisaw, it'd be really interesting to see where he ends up as almost the bridesmaid of the offensive line first round class almost, who I still think is a very kind of strong prospect who I would definitely be happy to end up with. So so that's kind of why I went with Christian Darrisaw. Shapland, your turn.
I was going to say it'll be interesting to see because you had Austin Corbett who had sort of the same description as the versatile lineman. He could play tackle or guard, and then he flopped at tackle, moved to guard for the Browns. Wasn't a scheme fit playing the guard system there. He's doing all right in LA, I think, now for the Rams, but. Yeah, but it'll be interesting to see if they can find their feet and their position. Because, like you said, there are a few of these versatile guys out there. So it'll be interesting to see how quickly they can find their position. Because I think that can really define their careers. But anyway, I'll carry on to what we've all been waiting for. More of me talking because there hasn't been enough of it this podcast. So I'm going to start off with quote number 1. Rare level of explosiveness, speed and agility. plays both fast and physical. Moves around the field like a loose-hipped running back. Twitchy trigger rockets him downhill to attack behind the line. And one of my favourite, heat-seeking missile once he's inside the pocket. Then we've got gets in too much of a hurry, driving downfield. Flow to the football lacks proper leverage. Does not play with linebacker fundamentals. And speed allows him to climb past blocks. Any guesses, or do you want some more? I gave away the position now, I realised.
I think I can narrow it down to 2. Because that went so well last time. But I'd say either Micah Parsons or Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah.
Daniel?
I'm going to go with an outside shout of a guy that's I've seen kind of rising up draft boards recently. Not quite sure how to pronounce his first name. I think it's Jamin Davis, the linebacker out of the University of Kentucky. I'm going to chuck as my guess.
I don't actually know where he's come from. I don't know where he's come from, but he's rocketed himself. Well, I knew that. But I mean, like, 'cause you had sort of Nick Bolton and what's his name? The other. There were 2 linebackers. They were like the 2 sort of locked in 3 and 4 linebackers behind Owusu-Koramoah and Parsons, and then he's just jumped in ahead of them.
Yeah, someone on Move the Six the other day said they think Davis is the best defensive player in the draft.
Damn. Well, he's being mocked up in drafts going to the Browns, although I don't think the Browns will go linebacker now because of like I said, they picked up Anthony Walker.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, I'm getting off topic. Shock, unlike me. Right, I'll give you a couple more just to see if you can get the last nail in the coffin. Let's go with can cover tight ends, running backs, and some slot receivers. Bypasses wrap-up tackle for big hit. Traits to succeed as high-impact blitzer. Body type is caught between safety and linebacker. Taking on blocks can be a chore.
I'm going to stick with Owusu-Koramoah.
Daniel?
Yeah, the fact that you kind of said can cover tight ends and stuff like that, I'm going to go with a JOK as well.
Well, it was indeed JOK. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. I learned how to say that as well.
Yeah, that was very impressive.
Next, you'll hear me say Terry McLaurin.
Almost.
Wait.
Oh
my god.
Oh my god.
So anyway,
it was wrong.
Owusu-Koramoah. So basically, his main thing right now is that he's the Isaiah Simmons of this draft. He's the sort of positionless linebacker safety. What you do with him? So my question is, what do you do with him? Which teams do you think would take a linebacker like that? And which teams do you think should sort of, because I've seen the more I read about him, like he will be a good player, but he's got to have a good scheme for him. It's the same as like Simmons was, where Simmons is going to be that guy that in a couple of years you're going to be like, oh, what a great pickup. He was so good for him. But until he finds that position, he's not going to be clicking along. So I was just going to ask if you guys had any sort of like mid-table, mid-draft table sort of fits for him, that where he's likely to go, because we're talking about really like the sort of, I don't think he'd go in the top 10, but sort of like the 12 to like 20 range.
I can tell you Thornsy's dream right now is that he ends up at the Raiders. That, like, honestly, if he goes to 17, that is just the dream for Thornsy. Hopefully he doesn't, because I think that would be quite nice. And the first kind of pick that Mike Mayock actually finally nails. or first round pick really anyway. But yeah, I think that's a really nice fit. Mid. Do you know what? He'd be quite a nice addition to the Chargers linebacking core as well. I mean, they won't look at Owusu Koromoa, but he'd be quite a nice addition there as well with to play with Kenneth Murray and kind of Drew Tranquil, who missed this season because he was injured. But I think Brandon Staley would love another defensive weapon to kind of play around with. Yeah, I think those are kind of my main fits in mid-table, if you will. And also the Patriots, because they just know what to do with it was on our mock draft 1.0 that that's kind of where he ended up, and I think the Patriots would know exactly what to do with him, but the Patriots might have other aspirations for their draft strategy. Who knows with the Patriots?
Yeah, that Owusu Koromoa and Derwin James duo as well would be disgusting. Yeah, I think the Raiders, like building on what you said about guys needing to go somewhere that suits them, like Gus Bradley, those are the kind of players he loves, like that sort of hybrid, freak athlete kind of player. And I don't really know who else. I can't think who else is picking in the mid now. Who's at 18?
You got the Dolphins are at 18. That could be quite nice actually as a replacement for Carl Van Noy.
Yeah,
that's quite naughty. Now you've said it.
Dolphins would be nice.
I was gonna show off my my knowledge of the draft and reel off like 11 to 20 just off the top of my head. That's how many mock I've done.
Ready.
You got the Giants at 11, the Eagles at 12.
This is what the podcast has become.
You've just been testing me now. We'll move on. But, I think Owusu Koromoa is going to be a nice kind of weapon, kind of the Derwin James-esque role. And more in terms of the draft as well. He does have the potential to kind of fall to someone who he's going to be an absolute steal for in the mid to kind of late end of the first round. But yeah, right, cool. My favorite part of that entire section from you, Shaps, I know it was a couple of minutes ago now, was, I can't remember even what the exact quote was, but it was something like, yeah, so he's kind of like this hybrid between outside linebacker and safety. So the question is like, what do you do with him? And then you went, so my question to you guys is, what do you do with him? I just thought that was really funny. But yeah, lovely. Right. I think we'll end it there. Shaps, have you got a trivia thing for us this week? Well, you've definitely got the answer from last week's question, but I'm not too sure if you've got a trivia question going into next week. Enlighten us, sir.
So last week I asked you the question, who's the all-time leading sack artist for at the defensive tackle position? And I had some guesses. There were some guesses of Mean Joe Green, but Mean Joe Green was classed as a defensive end by the NFL because he played in that sort of 3-4 defensive end role. For D tackle, it is Thornsy. I think you guessed it. Do you want to take a stab at it again live on air?
Was it John Randall?
It was the former Minnesota Viking, and yeah, right. So now, anyway, so this week, so that's that. John Randall. If you got it, congrats. If you guessed Mean Joe Green, you lost on a technicality. Or the legendary recommended you. So yeah, this week's question, I've got a bit sort of off the cusp, and I thought I'd treat Dan. So I've got a question about the GOAT, Thomas Brady. Not really about him, but using him. So Thomas Brady, not sure if people know this, but he wasn't a first-round pick. He was a sixth-round pick in the year 2000, taken with the 199th pick. He has amassed 1,043 rushing yards. So my question to you is, Tom Brady, who arguably is the GOAT and maybe should have been a first round pick, how many running backs have been taken with a first round pick since the year 2000 that have less rushing yards than Tom Brady? So how many running backs taken in the first round since the year 2000 have less than 1,043 rushing yards? I don't have the exact number of running backs drafted in the first round. I looked through them all, don't worry, because I checked all their rushing yards. Probably about 20 to 30, 20, 30, 40, somewhere in that ballpark, 20 to 40. Just shoot around like that's how many have been drafted. So yeah, that's my question to you: is how many do you think haven't hit up to the most recent draft from the year 2000 have not beaten Tom Brady's rushing title?
Oh, so it's up to
and that's it from me.
It's up to and including last year.
Up to and including the 2020. Yes.
Ooh, okay. Right, perfect.
Right.
Nice one, chaps. We'll have a think about that. And I'm sure the listeners will as well. I know people hit me up with their guesses or just showing off that they know the answer. So I'm sure that'll happen again this week. Perfect. Thank you, boys, for a great episode. Thank you to Professor Shapland for his very informative workshop that he did today. I won't call it a lecture because it makes it sound boring, and I actually did find it interesting. So I'm going to call it a workshop. Nice stuff, bro. And Thornsy, you were here as well, I think. But I look forward to next week, where you'll never guess what, boys. It is our last group mock draft before the big night. So it is mock draft 3.0, and I'm really interested to see what goes down there. Lovely stuff. Right. Nice one, chaps. Have a good week.
Thank you very much. You too. And Mr. Thorns, you have a great week too.
You've got increasingly formal as the weeks have gone on in this section. But thanks, chaps. Right, Thornsy, have a good week, bro.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, boys. Have a lovely week. If you haven't done it yet, please follow us on Instagram, and we will catch you next time for Mock Draft 3.0 and more fun conversation. See you then. Peace.